Welcome back, everybody, to more of the Fruit of Grisaia. Here we are on Sakaki's route. In the last episode, Sakaki found out that Yuji was stalking her. He finally had to come clean and said that, hey, he was ordered to protect her. So let's see what happens. Let's see what unfolds, shall we? I can't say this applies to more typical student dormitories, but in this place, there isn't that dramatic a difference in atmosphere between school days and vacation days. The residents wear casual clothes instead of school uniforms. That's about it. Days off aren't really that much of an upper, and weekdays aren't that strong a downer. The energy level around here appears to stay pretty much consistent. Moni's always thrusting her tits out, Makina's constantly babbling away in dubious Japanese. Sachi never fails to offer perfect services with a superficially polite smile, and Michiru is an idiot 24/7. Likewise, this woman's expressions don't change much no matter what the calendar reads. Gazing at the clouds outside the window, she reaches tentatively toward an umbrella, then hesitates. After a moment, the pattern repeats itself. Eventually, she picks up the tote bag sitting at her side, shoots a few cautious glances around the area, and begins to ease open the front door as quietly as possible. Yo! Sakaki twitches like a startled cat. Slowly, stiffly, she turns to face me. Going out to sea. Just so you know, the weather won't turn bad until late tonight. Have a safe trip. Despite my considerate umbrella-related tip, the woman's expression is now one of clear hostility. It's my job after all. I don't like it. I'm sorry, but whether you think it's necessary doesn't really matter. The objective of the evaluation was that you were in danger. And more importantly, I have orders from the main... You can do that to me? Alright, let's see how it is. Alright then. Time to go, I guess.
これで3日連続ですね。どうやらユージの仕事が関係してるっぽいのは分かったけど、それにしてもあんだけ拒絶されても行かなきゃいけないって辛いよね。めんどっちいよな。でもどうしてボディーガードとかさせるんだろう。ユミコの周りってそんなに危険なこととかあったっけ？さあね。事情が変わったのかもしれないし、その辺は多分ユージも榊さんも教えてくれないだろうし。
Well, I'll just read through my diary again.
動向を見守る以外はないって感じでしょうか。
Oh, this ought to go very well.
そうね。まあ見守ってるうちにここで人情沙汰とか起きなきゃいいけど。みちる様、一人首をひねっていらっしゃいますが。ここで言う人情とは人の情けのことではなく刃物で人を傷つけるの意味ですよ。わかってるわよ。そんなこと思ってなかったわよ。ちょっと何のことがわかんなかっただけよ。わかってへんがな。
This game, I tell you. The place where Sakaki spends her days off isn't far from the academy, fortunately. Follow the footpath from our front gate until it turns to the south, then walk 300 meters or so along the prefectural road down into the sea and you're there. Boom. There are a few obstacles and nothing in the way of blind spots, so it's not much of a challenge as an observer. Sakaki's been shooting frequent looks over her shoulder in my direction ever since we left. I'd guess 60% of the reason is her hoping to find some opportunity to slip and escape my surveillance. The other 40 is pure anger. No, actually, maybe it's more 50-50. As for concern on behalf of her bodyguard, I clearly not even a single percent. In fact, the day after I admitted the truth, Sakaki tried to run away from me the moment she saw my face. How rude. I'm not that ugly, am I? The girl's only an amateur, so naturally it didn't take long for me to catch up, but since since then she's been constantly watching for another chance. Can't be too careless now. Easy enough to catch up to her after she bolts, but there's always a possibility someone will attack her in the meantime. Far safer to constantly keep an eye on her. I'm on the job after all. They'll cut my wages if I slack off. Sakaki heaves another heavy sigh, then heads for her destination with a slightly quickened gait. Easily matching her pace, I follow in silence. After less than 10 minutes of walking, we arrive at the riverbank. The river is called the Shinozaki, a smaller Class B river that flows down to the coast at Mishima Cape. Since we're close to where it meets the sea, it's fairly wide here, with a moderately sized bank on either side. Not too far away, one of the East Beach Express lines owned by Sakaki's family cuts across the water. Every 30 minutes or so, a 2-car diesel train rumbles across the iron bridge. Exhaling softly, Sakaki lowers the tote bag in her hand to the grassy ground. She settles herself down next to it, retrieves colored pencils from inside, then props her B4-sized sketchbook against her knees. And looking straight out at the scenery before her, she begins intently moving her pencils across the paper. Oh, we got a little artist here. Why does Yuji look so ridiculous? What is that pose? What is he doing? That looks crazy. Look at that. Like, what? Oops. I forget the space bar on this one. Like, the way his leg is bent, looks like he's gonna fall backwards, and he just doesn't care. I don't know. I only learned this after becoming Sakaki's guard, but the reason she abruptly leaves the campus for hours at a time is a very simple one. She draws pictures. Oh, that's nice. Maybe she didn't want her classmates to know about her hobby. Maybe there's some other reason. Well, either way, I'm just glad she wasn't coming into contact with any strange characters. In that scenario, there would have been a lot of troublesome preliminary cleanup to take care of. But JB probably would have warned me if the girl was up to anything too risky. So I'd never been that worried about her activities. More like mildly curious.
Look
behind you, there's clouds all over the place. Sakaki's approach to her art is straightforward and orthodox. She begins by roughly sketching out the scene in general, then proceeds to fill in details little by little. She's not quite on the level of a dedicated art student, but judging from what I've seen of her work, the girl had a good amount of talent and skill. That said, I didn't have much of an eye for art. I can tell she's good on a technical level, but I don't have many other impressions. Even if I did, expressing them would probably only irritate her Sakaki further. Nice weather. Hanging back far enough not to get in Sakaki's way, I look up into the sky, feeling the sun beating down on my face. The latter half of July is always pretty hot, especially in this area. Nice refreshing scenery and all, but it's not the most pleasant season to be sure. Drops of sweat, the blazing summer sun, a vibrant picture taking shape. I shake my head to dispel the shadowy wisps of memory floating to the surface of my mind, then return my attention to the subject of my surveillance. The sun sinks into the horizon as if sliding gently down the slope of a mountain. All of a sudden, the area is bathed in orange light. Perhaps taking that as a signal of sorts, Sakaki gathers up her materials, stretches out her legs for the first time in hours, and slowly gets up to her feet.
Ne.
And kicking lightly at the ground in apparent irritation, she speaks to me. Oh, that's a surprise.
あなた、そうやってずっと立っているばかりで、私には一切話しかけようとしないのね。
I said nice weather earlier. Did you not hear that? I'm pretty sure I said that. Oh, maybe it was my imagination. Hard to tell anymore. Did you want me to make conversation?
まさか。ただ、いつもしつこいぐらいに私の行く先を尋ねるくせに、ここに来たら何も聞かないから不思議に思っただけよ。
You came here to draw. Once I confirmed that you weren't going anywhere, I didn't have any reason to bother you, right?
仕事で必要なことだけ聞いたということなのね。
Well, that's right. Talking to your client more than necessary would be an expression of personal interest. When that's not relevant, the bare facts are enough. What's wrong? Did you want me to take interest in your drawing?
なんでもないわ。
It's always something. It's never nothing. Sakaki turns her back in a somewhat grumpy fashion, hefts her tote bag off the ground, and begins to walk off without so much as a word. I follow her quick, irritated strides at a similarly rapid pace. My investigation of Sakaki Yumiko's movements and protection of her person continued along the lines. Sakaki fundamentally ignored me. When she did talk, it was mostly hostile questions or arbitrary complaints. The atmosphere was badly strained, to say the least. And gradually, the complaints began to grow more frequent and more aggressive, culminating in an incident about 1 week later. Aw, they skipped my birthday. Happy birthday to me.
毎日毎日あなたにつけ回されるのかと思うと、一瞬も落ち着けないわ。
Today, Sakaki seemed even more irritated than usual, and she's pretty irritated most days, so this is quite a surprise. She was reading in the lobby from early in the morning, and before noon she headed out to sketch at the riverbank. In other words, the two of us had been alone together more or less all day. Seems to have grated on her nerves a little. Stopping her drawing in the early evening, as always, she gathered up her belongings more rapidly than usual, then stomped up to me and began to vent her spleen. Not to worry, I do have basic manners. I make sure to avert my eyes from any potentially shameful actions on your part.
そういうことを言うこと自体がマナー違反だって、なぜわからないのかしら。
I'd been intending to smooth things over, but seemed to have poured oil on the fire instead. This is something I've been vaguely aware of for a while now, but it seems I have a bad habit of enraging women over the strangest little things. All the more pathetic because it's usually the result of well-intentioned words backfiring rather than actual maliciousness on my part.
第一、あなたの言うその脅威って何なのかしら。こうして散々つきまとってよくわかったでしょ。私はすでに実家からも邪魔者扱いされた存在なの。今さら誰かが営利目的で近寄ってくることなどありえないわ。
From the start, Sakaki had insisted that she didn't want protection, but now she tries out a different objection. To be sure, I haven't picked up on any concrete threats approaching Sakaki in the week I've been watching over her. It'd be too late to start protecting you after something happens. A bodyguard is a preventative measure. Not much good in installing a burglar alarm after someone's cleaned out your safe, right?
でも現実に襲ってくる人間なんていないじゃない。言っておくけど、あなたにつきまとわれたこの1週間だけじゃなくて、2年近く一人でいたのに、そんなことはこれまで一切なかったんだから。
But today just might be the day that changes. You never know. The future is very unclear.
詭弁を下ろしたって無駄よ。
Sorry. In that case, take a look behind you.
だから。
Sakaki starts another angry retort but swallows her words as she notices that I've said something strange. There's been something wrong with this picture for a while now.
背後って何があるのよ。
Sakaki too seems to have finally caught the scent of something strange in the air. With timid, uncertain movements, she slowly turns her head to look behind her. Oh no! Yeah, I always do that. Look at those guys' faces. Ugh. Nameless grunt indeed. That group of blatantly suspicious-looking men in black suits stare back. They're not even trying to hide what they are, which probably means they're planning to take forcible measures. Only reinforcing this impression, the unmarked van parked next to the car on the road above, standard vehicle for carrying off a kidnapped victim. These gentlemen don't strike me as the most peace-loving bunch. Even without the van and the suits, it's clear enough from a glance at the lead group that these people aren't here for a calm negotiation. A brawny man, strikingly wide in the shoulders, towers at the head of the pack. At his side, there's a man with bandages rolled around his fists, probably gripping something hard. The third keeps his arms dangling loosely at his sides in the manner of a martial artist, waiting and watching for us to make a move. Even if they came out with a good evening, could you spare a moment to talk? At this point, it'd be hard to take it as anything but a sarcastic provocation.
ねえ、この人たち誰なの？あなたが言っていた通り、私に用があって集まってきたの。
Sakaki's tone of voice has grown distinctly uneasy. Faced with an unfamiliar atmosphere of danger, her normal cool-headed indifference has melted away. She has unconsciously grabbed hold of my shirt, and there's clear fear in her eyes. Well, I don't have much value as a commodity, so I think it's safe to assume they're after you, Sakaki.
そんな。だって私は。
Now remember, all these attacks, as far as I know, are planned. They're not real attacks. They're meant to put her as kind of on a shaky ground, so she'll start listening to her father more. Of course, she doesn't know any of this. You can make excuses if you want, but I don't think they're going to change their objective. Sakaki's hands grip my sleeve even more tightly. The men approach slowly and silently, eyes fixed intently on us, looking for the right moment to take action. 3 in front seem like the main threat. They've got 5 others hanging back as support, including their drivers, but that group doesn't even have any combat experience. Listen very carefully, Sakaki. Drawing my face close to Sakaki, I push her long hair away from the side of her head. A shapely white ear emerges from its hiding place behind the black curtain. I speak a few quiet, blunt words into it. Stay down, make yourself as small as possible, and keep yourself behind me. Just do it, alright? Unless you're eager to make a ride with these charming people. Sakaki's question falters off halfway through, but her meaning's clear enough. I offer her a firm, emphatic nod. I can handle 8. Might be a little frightening, but deal with it. It'll be fine. Just do what I told you. In that instant, as Sakaki tries to continue her objection, the man with the physique of a rugby player who'd been standing at the head of the pack rushes forward, aiming to tackle me to the ground. Get down, Sakaki! As soon as Sakaki throws herself face out of the ground, I dodge the enormous man's charge like a toreador evading a bull. Apparently, rugby man wasn't expecting such a well-timed sidestep. Makes a strange little grunt as the momentum carries him past me. A nice broad back you've got there. Before I can begin to turn, I sharply drop my right elbow down onto his oversized spine. Ow. You have to admit, though, makes for a nice big target as well. The rugby man exhales roughly and collapses face first into the ground. That's 1 for starters. Confirming that my oversized friend isn't getting up anytime soon, I whip around 180 degrees and face the other attackers. Bandage Hands here has a different style. He's spitting out short pants at regular intervals, bouncing slightly from side to side in time to the rhythm. This one's shorter than me, but his body's abnormally slim and lithe. His physique suggests extraordinary agility. From his stance with his right arm slightly bent below and behind his left, it's clear that he's an experienced boxer. If he lands a punch, it's probably going to be bone fracture or internal bleeding. A slugging match with a boxer is never a good idea, let alone when he's grasping something. In other words, I need to dodge until I have a chance to launch a disabling counterattack to a weak point. The tempo of Bandage Hand's breathing grows steadily quicker. As he slowly begins to close the distance between us, the slight movements of his body begin to include something of a forward back sway. He's coming! The man exhales heavily and springs forward, his half-hidden right hand shooting out toward my face. I duck my head just barely enough to avoid the punch. Now within range, he follows up with a wider swing from the left. That's what I was looking for. Cleanly evading the second half of this predictable combination, I slide forward to a point-blank range and land a violent kick to his shin. As Bandage Hands freezes up from the pain, I step back, pivot, and swing my fist into his right flank, throwing my whole body into the punch. Spittle and a strange, strangled little grunt spray from the boxer's mouth. His eyes roll back in his head, and he collapses heavily to the ground. You should probably stay down for a little while after taking a direct hit to the liver. Before the others can react, I've resettled myself at Sakaki's side. 2 down. I look over at the final remaining member of the attacking team. Although there's a hint of shock in his expression after seeing the others go down so quickly, his composed posture suggests a fundamental confidence. He clearly thinks himself on a different level than those two. His peculiar stance, involving constant movement of his limbs, reminds me strongly of the Chinese kenpu my master taught me back in the day. This one's aiming at a counter himself. I can picture him smoothly sidestepping the instant I try to lunge forward. The loose swaying of his body might not look particularly intimidating to an amateur's eye, but I'm confident he's more dangerous than the others. Well, let's try a trap. Imitating Rugby Man, I spring forward like a sprinter, charging directly at the martial artist. He instantly slips away from my attack with a triumphant little laugh. From the side, he fires off a sharp kick aimed at my pivot leg. Took the bait. I swiveled to grab his extended leg, then twisted it roughly in my arms, bringing him to the ground in a leg lock. Specifically, it's a heel lock of the sort frequently seen in your nastier mixed martial arts tournaments. I twisted his foot back with my arms, causing agonizing pain that would normally inspire a quick tap out. Of course, this isn't a match, so that's not an option. The man desperately uses his free legs and arms to attack me, but with his heel completely immobilized, it's impossible to gain the leverage necessary for an effective blow. Sorry, but I need you to settle down for a while. Bringing the strength of my arms to bear, I bend the man's heel sharply to the side. The joints of his ankle crack loudly and his foot turns to a direction nature never intended it to. The man lets out a strangled little scream and I feel the fight go out of him. When I release the hold, he instantly clutches his ankle and rolls around on the ground, tears streaming in his face. That's everyone. Rising quickly to my feet, I place my body protectively in front of Sakaki's. The only men left standing nearby are two members of the support team. I glower up at them expectantly. But the remaining men keep their distance, watching warily and hissing to each other in flustered voices. What they signed up for? Maybe the kidnappers hashed out internal contracts or something of the sort. Nothing I need to be too concerned about at the moment, I suppose. We're gonna run away now, Sakaki. I pull Sakaki by the hand and run up the sloping bank toward the street above. Sakaki quickly runs out of breath but pushes herself desperately forward, barely managing to keep up. After reaching the road, I shoot one quick glance over my shoulder at the group of men we left behind. The remaining members are helping the battered fighters back to their vehicles rather than pursuing us. Concluding that they're backing off for now, I set off at a rapid jog toward the dorm, towing Sakaki along behind me. Whew, that was stressful. Although the men didn't seem to be chasing us, just to be on the safe side, it took a number of brief detours on the way back to the campus. The sun had just been setting as we left, so by the time we finally reached the gate, it's already dark. Bursting into the dorm in this state would just alarm everyone, and I don't think Sakaki is looking for more of a fuss right now. Instead of running straight to the lobby, I lead her to the courtyard. Are you alright, Sakaki? Finally releasing her hand, I ease Sakaki down onto a bench to rest. The girl makes an admirable effort of keeping up a tough front, but after all that running, she's understandably fatigued. Something? Oh, that's pretty vague. You're referring to my scuffle with those gentlemen. Sakaki slightly nods her head. Well, I've been trained on how to deal with people proficient in various skills. It's kind of relevant in my line of work. In my profession, you naturally meet people with a wide range of experience in this regard. Former Dan rank Kenpu practitioners, karate experts who make it to nationals. Sometimes you'll be running into guys who compete in the world championships of something or other. Naturally, the same goes for our organization's competitors and professional rivals. So the instructors teach you a wide variety of coping strategies covering more or less the full range of martial arts. And by taught, I mean they beat the techniques into you. I myself suffered more than a few lessons that very nearly ended in bone fractures. She mutters the words without a hint of ridicule, in a tone of complete conviction. This is a world Sakaki knew nothing of until now. It's simply outside her range of expertise. Even if she understood in an academic sense that people like that existed, personally coming into contact with them has clearly driven home just how real and unpleasant that world really is. So there's your wake-up call. You understand now just how much danger you're in. Sakaki nods with uncharacteristic honesty. Why not?
だから最初に言ったでしょ。私は別にどうなったって構わない。だからあなたに守ってもらう必要もないんだから。
Her expression changes. The fear is fading, leaving something gloomy and bitter in its place. Just like the other day, I can see a hint of defeat in her eyes.
護衛はもういいわ。明日から来ないでちょうだい。
Sakaki brushes off a few clumps of earth from her skirt, then opens her bag and carefully returns the colored pencils scattered loosely inside to the box. When that task is accomplished, she takes the bag in her hand and rises abruptly to her feet.
部屋に帰るわ。
And with this brief announcement, she strides quickly off in the direction of the dorm. But Sakaki stops dead about 4 paces away. After a moment's hesitation, she turns toward me and comes back. Her body faces me, but her eyes won't quite meet mine. What is it? All of a sudden, she lowers her head in a slight bow.
今日は助けてくれてありがとう。必要ないと言っても、あなたが助けてくれたことには変わりはないもの。
It's so genuinely unexpected that all I can do is watch. I can't think of anything to say in return.
それじゃあ。
Once again, Sakaki turns on her heel, and this time she doesn't stop. Her feet crunch across the gravel at a steady, controlled pace as she makes her way across the courtyard. By appearance, at least, she's already back to the Sakaki Yumiko I know. I watch her as she goes, thinking back over the events of the day. I have to say, though, that was strange. The people who came after us today were, without a doubt, a standard crew of moderately skilled hooligans, but there's one thing that's been bothering me. They came at me one by one, taking turns, like something out of a manga. That makes exactly 0 sense. All 3 of the tough guys should have rushed me at once. Hell, even the 5 they had hanging back for support. The sheer numbers would have made it difficult even for me, especially with Sakaki to protect. Divide and conquer is the basic rule of fighting when outnumbered. And they went out of their way to divide themselves from me. And no matter how I look at this, it just doesn't add up. It might just be a coincidence, but there's a possibility it means something. Better to figure it out now rather than run into some nasty surprise down the road. I guess JB would be the person to ask. Visions of shaggy-headed know-it-all blonde floating unpleasantly before my eyes, I slowly follow Sakaki's path toward the dorm. Interesting. Yuji knows something's up. So with that, we're going to end the video here, and I will see you all tomorrow on more of the Fruit of Grisaia. Have a lovely day.